I mean, I think it's quite obvious what I'm gonna review today. It's a soundbar from Blitzwolf with the model number BW for Blitzwolf and SDB1 for, I guess, soundbar 1. And depending on where you get it, it's actually very affordable, because from the US warehouse with the 90% coupon code down there in the description, you are looking at a price of roughly $80. Sounds really nice so far. Now, if you get it from Europe, including the taxes that you have to pay from the Hong Kong warehouse, you are looking at a price of roughly over 100 euros. Now, for this price, or let's say maybe a little bit higher, you can already sometimes get soundbars with subwoofers that will maybe give you the more whole experience, but especially for the size and without the subwoofer for this price, I was actually surprised of how good it sounds, because just look at the dimensions. 90 centimeters wide. In this dimension we have 7.5 centimeters and 4.5 centimeters in terms of height. And maybe if you've maybe seen my Sony XF90 review, I've used that one with it and it fits nicely below it. And it doesn't need any extra sort of space for a subwoofer, and even though it maybe doesn't go all that deep, just because of the lack of it, it has some nice features to it. But before that, we actually have to look at it a little bit closer up. And sorry that it is so close up, but my other lens had a lot of trouble with this kind of pattern and a lot of flickering. But as you can already see at the top, we have the power button, source, volume, minus and plus. We have this mesh system. We also have a little bit gloss, unfortunately, but it is only this stripe, which you could just keep clean quite easy because you won't really touch it all that often. But for some reason, and I don't know why, the whole bottom is glossy, but we have rubber feet, so that's not a problem. You won't really see it anyways. And obviously also the back is glossy. With here the AC port for the power, then we have coaxial, we have optical, aux, USB and HDMI ARC. Now let's take a look at the remote control. It's a very simplistic one, but it gets all the stuff done that you would expect it to, because you can see power, equalizer, also volume up and down, skip the tracks, pause and also mute, and then the the 6 sources. Now let's actually turn it on. And one thing that you most probably won't be able to see is the very dim, or actually also super tiny red LED. Once I turn it on, it should be green. You can see that it's not super big and it's not super bright. But for example, if you press something, you see it flickering, so you know the remote did work. Now the remote itself in terms of actual reach isn't all that great, so you kind of have to point not actually straight at it, which didn't work so well for me, but actually kind of towards the ceiling. I don't know really why, but once you get to know where you have to point it, it works out good. Nice feedback, and let's actually check the equalizers, because we have 4 of them, with the first one being
music,
then
news, sport,
and
movie.
So 4. Does it make a whole lot of a difference? It actually makes a noticeable one, even though I would say just leave it at movies all the time. It felt the most balanced to me. If you want, for example, more highs or a little bit more clarity in the vocals, or for example, such something with voices, go for news. But movies sound really fine for me. But I'm going into the sound a little bit later on. But the good thing is we have a nice amount of options with Bluetooth, coaxial. So you should be pretty much able to use everything that you want to, but not quite really sure what else to say besides, for example, now talking about the sound. And as you can actually already see here, the drivers, we have 2 on the left and 2 on the right here for the highs, and for mids and bass there's a little bit bigger one, which is actually not that small as I thought. But let's actually get into the sound, and I have to say, okay, it does not get super deep in terms of bass, obviously, since there is no subwoofer, but where it absolutely shines, in my opinion, is especially the vocal range, because the mids extend quite nice and low with a good quality, quite nice and tight, and also highs very clear. So I would say this one is ideal for TV shows, YouTube videos and everything else that is not a blockbuster movie with a lot of action effects, because there I would say the maximum volume is actually good enough, for example, for a room of maybe 15-20 square meters. It did fill it, but you had to already max it out all the time, and it was a solid, but definitely not too loud experience, but it was good enough. But like I said, this I would actually not even bother to turn on my normal speakers anymore, because just for watching YouTube videos, and especially all TV shows or even dramas or movies that don't really depend on effects, this was really nice in terms of people talking, so voices, also vocals. Because if you talk about music, I have to say, what I did not expect actually to sound that wide, because it's 90 centimeters wide, and for example with the 65-inch TV that I used, the soundstage was actually surprisingly wide. It didn't sound mono like, for example, on the Sony that I used. Obviously, it does not play as deep, and therefore, especially for music, unless you maybe use it always at like moderate volume, then it's fine. if you want it louder, then it just shows that then we don't have quite the quality anymore and just not enough volume for a speaker like that. But for normal, decent volumes, even for music, quite good, but definitely it's more meant for TVs and such. And here I have to say, I really liked of how full and rich and actually how big voices and dialogue in movies sounded. So this is where it absolutely delivers. Now obviously if you have a subwoofer, then you have more bass, and then it also well for action movies. But I have to say, at least from the 2-3 soundbars that I've heard so far, there is one thing that you have to make a compromise for, because this one, let's say roughly $100, and if you then take a soundbar for, like I said, $120 that has a subwoofer, you can't quite get the same quality of the soundbar itself. Yes, you get a lot more bass, but what usually happens is the handoff frequency from the lowest point or the lowest frequency that this can play up to the highest point where the subwoofer can play, there is a gap. So you don't have this gap here, and obviously it doesn't go all the way below. But therefore all the frequencies are there, the important ones, because nothing feels wrong. For example, when I had one with a subwoofer here, or from the one my brother has, you notice all the bass rumbling very deep down below, but when you have vocals, there is something in between is missing. So here you don't get the rumbling bass, but it's fine enough for anything that's not an impressive action blockbuster. But once again, voices, dialogue, and all normal effects with normal music and such actually surprised me quite a lot in terms of quality. And overall, I have to say, for the price of roughly $100, I can actually recommend it, especially if you have a room that it's not that big, where you don't have the space for a subwoofer anyways, and you can't really push all that high volumes anyways, and you just want something really, really solid for normal sounds. Yeah, actually really nice. I did not expect that. And you have Bluetooth in case you want to use it with your phone or anything else, and you are pretty much set. So let's not forget one thing, $100 or $80 actually if you get it from the US warehouse. You can't expect something crazy impressive, but compared to any TV, for that little price that you pay extra, it is a huge addition to your experience. Because when I use this with the TVs that I usually use it with, like I said, did not bother to turn on my speaker system unless it's a movie. For everything else, this sounded so big, room filling, good. So that's it. Until next time, bye.